Good morning, everyone out there in YouTube land. It is Am Lee, your everyday light worker, back again after a short hiatus. I'm sorry, you guys, that I keep leaving and coming back, but I have been trying to think about what I'm going to do with this channel to make it more engaging, because I know as an attorney, and especially an attorney who has spent her whole entire life specializing in race and sex issues. That's the law, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that gives an attorney the jurisdiction to focus on those two issues exclusively. How I can make this content more engaging, because the law, let's face it, it's kind of boring. So when I'm just talking in my everyday voice, people think that I am so funny and so engaging. And this occurred to me two times this week. Once I was talking, or actually writing, I was writing about slavery, and the audience, my readers, were like, "You're so funny." And I'm like, well, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just being myself, and I'm just writing about slavery, how it existed. But they thought that it was funny. And humor can disarm people, because slavery is a very serious subject in America. It's a subject that has been under ridiculous amount of censorship of late, because there are literally entire libraries that can be filled about the books that have been written about slavery in America. It existed, it's real. But right now we're living through times where people want to rewrite the history and act like it's not real and it didn't exist. And part of what I want to do on this channel is to be like, okay, let's stop being retarded. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Retarded really means to hold something back. Let's not retard the history of this country by acting like something that was a huge part of how this nation was even built didn't exist at all. Okay, so that's part of what I'm going to be talking about on this channel. But I'm going to have to rebrand it. I'm going to have to, number one, use code words, because these words like slavery, race, sexism, racism, women, men, white, black, algorithms look for them and decide that these are words that cannot be used, and they will demonetize you, shadow ban. They'll do all kind of funny things to your channel if you use those words. So I'm not going to use those words. When we talk about racism, I'm going to use the phrase, the fantastic voyage. And I've decided to use that phrase, the fantastic voyage, number one, because it comes from a really cool Coolio song, song rap, because, Coolio was a rapper, but he was also singing the Fantastic Voyage, because it was a remake of, I think, Bootsy's group started with the Funkadelics and the Fantastic Voyage. So we're going to call it the Fantastic Voyage, because racism in America is fantastical, and that it is unreal. It's absolutely unreal, some of the things that have been done in the name of racism in America. Just the whole, you drink at these kind of fountains and you drink at those kind of fountains. It's like something out of a dystopian fantasy, but it is just fantastical. So we're going to call that the Fantastic Voyage. It's a euphemisms. America loves its euphemisms. America loves to act like a thing isn't a thing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to call racism the Fantastic Voyage. So I will be doing a lot of discussion about the Fantastic Voyage. Another thing that I'm going to be talking a lot about is sexism in America and worldwide, because sexism is honestly a much bigger problem, because it impacts far more people. It impacts over 50% of the population, because whatever affects women, whatever affects and impacts women also affects and impacts children. And people don't give children a thought, because children don't have a voice until they're all grown up. So that's something that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about sexism, but we're going to call it misogyny. Get it? Misogyny. Misogyny. So if you run those words together really quick, it's misogyny. So I will probably abbreviate those words because that is something that I like to do. Um, Probably call misogyny, MAJ, because those are the initials, MAJ, when I'm talking about sexism. So just keep it in your lexicon that when I talk about MAJ or misogyny, I'm talking about sexism. I'm talking about the way that women are treated differently in America as well as the world. And sometimes it's horrifically differently in terms of their agency, in terms of their voice, in terms of their bodies. And this really starts to hit really oddly in industrialized Western countries where white people, we're not going to be able to use that term white people because, again, it's something that the algorithms look out for. So I'm going to say blight people, blight people. And I have my reasons for that word specifically. But blight people have a way of when you're blight and you are a woman, but I'm going to refer to woman as the double X's. When you are blight double X, you have a way of using misogyny or match to your advantage in that you might be someone with those double X's, but you're still not crack. So crack is my word that I'm using for black. And black, in terms of the racial hierarchy in America, is definitely considered the lowest of the lowest of the low. Now, there are a whole lot of variations in between blight and crack, a whole lot of variations in between those two designations. And skin color determines a lot of times where you fall in America with regard to those designations. Skin color as well as the country of origin. If you come from a wealthier country, if you come from, for example, the Middle East, you're considered white, even though blight. You're considered blight, even though a lot of times those people look anything but. I mean, a lot of them are darker than me. And I am considered in America crack. And I proudly identify as crack. I proudly identify as an African American because I know my culture. I know my culture is one of strength. I know it's one of creativity. I know that it's one of survival. So I don't feel any shame about being a part of African American culture. There are a lot of good things about African American culture. There are a lot of bad things about African American culture. And that's true for everybody's culture. Everybody's culture has just probably as much good as bad. So there's no shame in the game of being an African American to me. But the purpose of this video is just to introduce you to the terms that I'm going to be using. Blight means what? Say it with me. White. Crack means what? Say it with me. Black. Misogyny is me talking about sexism in America and in the world. Also going to refer to that as match. And when I talk about racism here in America, I'm going to call that the fantastic voyage, or sometimes just the voyage. I'll shorten it. But when you are looking at the fantastic voyage and the misogyny, and the reason I'm calling it, and those terms come from short stories that I'm writing. So I'm writing a short, because I'm also a writer, so I'm writing a short story collection called The Fantastic Voyage, and it has to do with my family's journey off of America's slave plantations into America's urban plantations. Because slavery, I have to find a word for slavery. Help me think of a code word for slavery. But the bottom line is it never went anywhere. It is still very much in existence, worse than it ever existed in antebellum times. In Alabama right now, they are taking prisoners' organs. They're taking their organs unapologetically, taking people's organs from them and probably selling them because they can probably get a lot of money for healthy organs to keep their prison industrial complex going. And the prison industrial complex is just slavery by another name. That's all it is. I am an attorney. I have the receipts for this. I can talk about the 13th Amendment till I turn blue in the face. If you want to go, we can go. But I'm going to be talking about these issues and trying not to get demonetized about them. But the next video I'm going to do is going to be on misogyny, and it's going to be about a specific person that is all in the news these days as of late. And this is someone that was completely off of my radar until she disappeared in plain sight. In plain sight, this woman has disappeared, and her name is Kate Middleton. She is also known as the Princess of Wales. So, next video, let's get into it. Am Lee signing off, your everyday light worker, also known as the hip hop litigator, also known as the Ghetto Princess. And I also have a whole lot of other names that I go by. What I love to do, and what I'm trying to build this channel around is my reading, my writing, and talking my Shia. That is like my favorite thing to do in life. Read, write, and talk my Shia. So trying not to make it so legalistic so that it's not so dry, because I'm not getting a lot of hits on my legal videos. And sexual harassment is such a wild and crazy subject. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do, instead of me just trying to give you content from all of my variety of experiences, which there's an abundance of them, they are wild. I'll start to just write down the wildest, craziest kind of stories that I have about sexual harassment and bring them to your attention. How about that? That'll be fun. But you know, I love to talk my Shia, so that's what we're going to be doing. Love you guys.